You know, if you're like most parents that have teenagers, one of the things that you probably struggle with is your son or daughter feeling like they don't have control over their life and wanting more control and not liking the consequences that they're experiencing from their choices. So today we're going to talk about how to help your teen learn about consequences. So if you have a teenage son or daughter, then if you're like most families, you're experiencing some of that kind of conflict as your son and daughter grows into adulthood of wanting more control over their life or wanting more freedom. And we've done another video on freedom that I'd invite you to look at, but just briefly we'll talk about that here. What is freedom, you know, and what do our sons and daughters mean when they're saying that they want more freedom? Well, typically what it means is that they want to be able to do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it, without experiencing any negative consequences. Well, the truth is that's not the way this life works. This earth experience is set up in such a way that it gives us feedback to tell us what's working and what's not working in our life, with the ultimate goal of achieving happiness. And so we have thoughts and beliefs about our life and about everything that we experience in our life, and those beliefs drive our behavior, and the behavior gives us our outcomes. So sometimes we think that we should be able to do whatever we want to do, and we should be able to avoid the outcomes of our choices. But we live in a world that is based on principles or laws. There are laws that govern this world in which we live, and when our beliefs and our behaviors are in alignment with those truths or principles, then we get the outcomes that we want. That's the working consequence. So when our thoughts and beliefs are in alignment with truth, thoughts, beliefs, behavior in alignment with truth, we get the outcomes that we want. When our thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors are not in alignment with truth, we get outcomes that we don't want. For example, if I just want to believe that gravity doesn't exist because I want to be able to float, well, I have the ability to step off a cliff and try and float, but gravity is a law that operates all of the time, whether I like it, agree with it, or understand it. And if I step off the cliff, I'm going to fall. So that's a consequence. Is that consequence a bad thing? Well, we get to choose. We get to choose whether the consequences are good or bad, because we get to assign meaning to everything that happens in our life. But I would argue that every consequence that we experience in life is a good thing, because it's feedback to us that tells us something. If we turn our brain on and look at it, it tells us something about our thoughts and our beliefs and our behavior. And if, again, our outcome is not working, then it tells us our outcome is not what we want. It tells us that our thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors are not in alignment with truth. So it allows us the chance to try something new. An example of this is Thomas Edison when he was working on creating the light bulb. You know, he tried, I've heard different numbers, anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 different things to come up with the filament that would work and not burn out. And at one point, after he had figured it out, a reporter asked him, he says, you know, how did you continue trying and trying and trying when you failed so many times? And his response was, I didn't fail one time. He said, every time I just learned one thing that didn't work. And so that's the way life is. Life gives us consequences or outcomes from the choices that we make. When those outcomes are what we want, it's telling us that what we're doing is working. When the outcomes are not what we want, it tells us that what we are doing is not working. So that's what we need to try to get our teens to understand, is that, first of all, there are laws or principles that govern the world in which we live. And it doesn't matter whether we know about them or understand them or believe them. They operate all of the time. If we can get them to see that there is that cause and effect, and that when we violate those laws, that there are consequences for that tend to be more negative. When we follow those laws, the consequences tend to be more of what we want. And then as parents, if we can do similar things in how we are raising our children, so if we understand principles ourselves and we are striving to live by them and parent in accordance with those principles, we're going to be more consistent and be able to help our children understand and see how principles do operate. The ultimate outcome of understanding principles is it empowers us. It allows us to take control of our lives and to get the outcomes that we want. When we understand what principles are and our behavior is in alignment with principles, then what happens is that the boundaries that those laws create for us actually expand. It's just like with your son or daughter. If they follow the boundaries that you set in your home, they follow the rules and the structure, your trust in them will generally tend to increase. And as your trust increases, those boundaries will expand, and they will be given more privileges and more opportunity to govern themselves. That's kind of a replication of life and the way that life operates for all of us. So help your kids understand that consequences, all consequences are good things. In fact, we have a residential treatment center for teen girls, and in our program we have a lot of rules. And we have those rules for two reasons. One, to keep everybody safe, but two, to give the students in our program an opportunity to learn quicker. Because with so many rules, that time frame between cause and effect is shortened. And when they follow the rules, they receive the benefit of following the rules. If they don't follow the rules, they receive the consequence of not following the rules. But in our school, in an attempt to help our students recognize that consequences are good things, we have both minor and major consequences, but we've renamed them. We call our minor consequences reminders, because that's what consequences are. It's a reminder of what's working or not working. And then a major consequence, so a more serious consequence, we call those opportunities, because those are learning opportunities to turn our brain on, pay attention, figure out what our beliefs are and whether they're in alignment with principle or not. And if not, to go ahead and change those and bring them in alignment with principle. And again, as we do that, once we understand that consequences are there to help and to teach us, now every consequence that we receive can be a positive thing and a useful thing in our life. I hope this has been helpful to you in dealing with your teen and helping them better understand the consequences and the purpose of consequences. I'd love to hear some of your experiences as you've tried to teach and implement this with your son or daughter. If you'd like to share them with us, please comment below. If there are other challenges that you're experiencing as a parent, go ahead and put that down there too, and would be happy to do videos in the future that would address some of the concerns that you may be experiencing.